Welcome to part 3 of the build video. Now here I've got my graphics card, which is the Asus Strix GTX 970, and next to it here I've got the EK Water Blocks GTX 970 Strix nickel plexi water block. So I'm going to install this water block on this GPU here. Now the Asus air cooler for this is actually quite a nice cooler. It's got one huge heat pipe there and two smaller heat pipes on the underside, and it also has a very nice backplate on it there. Now I'm hoping to keep this backplate on here and reuse it, but of course this air cooler is going to have to be removed. Now I'd briefly like to mention that EK's included instructions make installing all of this extremely easy for someone that's a noob at water cooling like me. It's all very clear and helpful, and there's lots of diagrams to help out through the entire process. Now it also has many suggestions for placement of the components in the system for optimum performance. One good example is having the radiator at the front or the top of the case drawing air in. Now the idea there is to keep intake temperatures down and give the radiator the most cooling possible. Now what I was worried about is that warm air would be dragged across everything in the case and all the other components would get heat soaked. So I was glad to see that EK's suggestion was having the radiator getting the cold air rather than exhausting hot air. Now all in all, I reckon if I was using this kit, the EK Water Blocks X240 kit, this could all be done easily in one weekend for just doing the CPU. It increased the time of the build for me as I'm doing the GPU as well, although I think overall it's going to have a really great outcome with performance and looks. I also believe this build would have been a lot easier if I had a more water cooling friendly case. This case here isn't really a water cooling friendly case. It's not designed for water cooling. It's just a general cheap mid-tower case, but I've managed so far to get it all in there. So here we can see how I've routed a lot of the hoses for the water cooling loop. Now we can see here there's no fittings currently on the GPU block, as I am waiting for those to arrive from EK. Now you can also see that these two are crossed over. Now the reason that is like that at the moment is because I mounted the Supremacy Evo block so the logo was the correct way up. I don't know if you'd be able to see that. Maybe if I zoom in we can see it here. So that logo is the correct way up, although I would rather rotate that block around so the hoses don't cross over and it will look a bit tidier. So this can come straight in here and this will go straight down to there. And the way these hoses are all routed is based on EK's instructions. So each port on the CPU block has an in and an out, so you know what way it all goes, and there's a diagram of the way the hoses should all go in the instructions, so it made that part of everything quite easy. I also have an EK Strix backplate on its way. Now the Asus backplate I like the look of a lot more than EK's one, but it comes to about here. And it also can't be used while using this water cooling block because the screws for the backplate are actually the screws that are used to mount the EK block to the graphics card. So that was a little bit disappointing because I like the look of the Asus one a lot more, but either way it'll have a backplate on there to hide the PCB and also keep dust off of it. And I think it helps with cooling a little bit, or to an extent. Now I want to show you guys exactly where the GPU block mounts to the card, and it is quite a lot heavier than the stock cooler. Now I'll move in a bit closer. Over here, these ones with the brown circles, that's where the stock cooler mounts, and the spot where the screws are currently in now is actually where the backplate mounts. Now you guys might notice here that these two hoses are empty and the GPU block is currently not installed. Now that's actually because the GPU block, where one of the screws went in, the mount was actually missing from the block, so there was nowhere for the screw to go. So I've actually been in contact with EK support, and we're actually in the middle of the RMA process. So if we take a look here, we can see these raised sort of standoffs for the screws. Now this one down here, there is no raised standoff, so I couldn't get the screw to thread in. So let's try and get this to focus up a little bit closer. We can see there is absolutely no raised standoff, so there's nowhere for the screw to actually thread into there. See, I can easily glide my finger across, and then we've got all of these other remaining ones. Now I am very interested with all of this and how the sound will be of the system. A lot of people tell me water cooling will make the system overall a lot quieter, although I'm not too sure if I agree with that, as I've had no first-hand experience, and I do know, of course, there's still noise from the fans and the pump. Now previously, before doing this, the loudest thing in my system was the water cooling pump for the Cooler Master Sidon 120V all-in-one cooler. And I'm hoping that this loop will keep the sound of the whole system overall down a little bit. I've been working with the RMA team from EK Water Blocks regarding the issue with the missing standoff on my water block for the GPU. Now, they said I don't actually need to return the GPU, and they've sent me out a bag with some replacement standoffs and a little tool to install them, so that will be nice and handy. That's a lot easier than me having to return the GPU block and have another one sent out, which could be a lengthy process and could also cost me for shipping, so that was quite good. Now I've also got two more fittings for the GPU block, and I've also got a backplate, an EK Waterbox backplate for the Asus Strix GTX 970, which you'll see when I'm installing all of this stuff. So we're getting pretty close, guys. This should hopefully all be up and running very soon. Okay, so the entire loop is in the case now, so we've got the fittings on the GPU block, we've got the backplate installed. Now I've also done basically all of the cable management for the system here, other than the front panel connections for the USB 3, the power button and everything like that. Now up the top here is actually where I've mounted the SSDs by just slightly modifying the standard SSD bracket. So I want to pull that out and show you guys. Now here I've got the SSD bracket. Now I've got an SSD in here, a crucial SSD, and also a laptop mechanical hard drive, 2.5 inch I believe, and both of these are 500 gigabytes. Now the only modification I've had to do with any tools, any power tools or anything for this whole build was just using a Dremel to grind down this side. Now this would sit in the case this way, and there was an extra lip across here. Now I don't know what it was for, but grinding that off gave me the extra clearance I needed to put this in the top of the case up there, which made everything fit in here nice and easily. So that will be going in with the rest of the cables, and I should be able to fill this very soon. All of the cabling for my system is completely managed. Now I did have to take the back panel off, of course, because I need to jump this and disconnect anything I don't want to be powered on while I'm filling the loop. But I also bought these little cable combs we can see here from AliExpress just to finish off all of that cabling. They were really, really cheap. And I've been out, I've bought some distilled water. Now the smallest quantity I could find it in was 10 litres, but it is really cheap, so having more is better than not having enough. So I'm going to break that into 900 millilitres and then add the EK Waterblock's Eco Coolant, and then I'm going to fill this loop. I've made this funnel type thing here just to get into the loop or get into the reservoir nice and easily without having anything in the way, and it should be able to be filled quite easily. Now this whole thing has taken me far too long. I mean, there was a few delays, but it's finally ready to fill. I'm really excited about this. Now Fallout 4 releases the day after tomorrow, and I really need to get this up and running because I really want to play Fallout 4. It's downloading back here as we speak, ready to go for when it releases, and I've got the day off work, so I'm really excited to play that. Now it's all filled. I want to leave it for 24 hours for a leak test. So far we're looking really good. There's absolutely no leaks that I can see on any of the fittings or any parts, so that is awesome. We can see lots of tiny air bubbles all through the loop, so that should hopefully rise to the surface pretty soon. And in 24 hours this computer should be ready to go. While I'm here, there was a couple more things that I wanted to cover. Now I'm only running 3 fans in the case right now. I've got the 2 front intake fans and 1 rear exhaust. So these are the fans that came with the EK loop, and this is a Corsair SP120 fan. Now I did buy some 140mm fans only to realize that this case does not support 140mm fans other than in the front, which wouldn't have worked with the radiator. So my Corsair AF140 fan wasn't able to be used here, and so were the other fans I bought. But they may be going into my other rig over there, depending on the plans with that, but that will be coming in the future. And for now, while I'm doing the leak down test, I've put some paper towels down at a few points where the system could leak. Now all of this part of the system is isolated from any hardware components, so I really like that, being my first water cooling build that isolates half the problem away from anywhere where it could cause any damage to my part. Now it's all done. It's been leak free for well over 24 hours and it's all booted up back here. Now I really wanted to get this video out before Fallout 4, before I started playing Fallout 4. There is a couple of other little bits and pieces I wanted to cover, so I guess there'll probably be a part 4 where I go over those things, and also I've got some temperature comparisons from before and I'll do some of after, and that will be coming in the next part. But hey, thanks a lot for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one.